Hey, hi. So if you are around 5 years of experience as a Java backend developer, these are the list of topics which you should be familiar with before sitting for the interview. Apart from this, you should also be familiar with like the framework, Spring Framework, and the other tools which you are working on. Uh, in any Java backend development interview, you have like around 50 to 60% of the time or the questions are asked with respect to the Java backend only, and I believe these are the topics which I've jotted down. Okay, these are topics which I've jotted down after sitting for more than, like you can say, 100 interviews. Where you can just take that particular number. Okay. So yeah, so let me just go through the topics. So first is, and which is the most important part, is the security part, right? So Spring Security or OAuth to JWT. So even if you have not worked on it, just try to be familiar with the how this works actually, right? So okay, this is very important. Like most of the time, developers don't work on this. Like they don't get chance to work on this, but make some personal projects or some side projects. This is please security and try to learn that. Right. Oh, comparator, comparables, equals, hashcode, threads. So these are the like the family of topics which should be familiar with, and you should know how to code all these things like comparators, comparables, both using Java 7 and Java 8, and equals hashcode. We should know how to what is the purpose of equals and hashcode, and how you can actually override these methods, right? And the threads. So multi-threading, generally nowadays we don't use multi-threadings, but just be familiar what is threads, and uh, how you can actually implement that, and what are the benefits it comes with, and also what are the drawbacks, right? Kafka, circuit breaker, circuit breaker states, API gateway, service registry, and discovery patterns, event driven architecture. So these family belongs to like you might not have, again, you might not have worked on all of this, but yeah, just be ready with any of the topic end to end. Like for example, Kafka. So you should be familiar with the implementation of Kafka, as well as what is the purpose behind Kafka and those things, right? And try to know any one of the pattern, possibly circuit breaker pattern or API gateway pattern, or any of the custom patterns which you use in your project, right? Oh, yeah. So this is REST template. Okay, REST template implementation. So generally, when we are working the microservices, working with microservices, we require to have this feign client or the REST template. So these are just the ways to connect different microservices. You should be familiar with all this. JUnits. So these are very important. Whatever code you are writing nowadays, most of the companies try to have 100% coverage, code coverage. So you should know how to write JUnits. Okay. Streams. So this comes along with Java 8, right? So how to find the maximum. These are the topics which you can actually prepare. And if you're even if you're not getting the like how the functional programming is working, or how lambda expression are actually getting derived, you should know how to find out the maximum from that particular correction, right? So this is like a non-negotiable. So even if you don't understand, okay, just try to learn it possibly. Okay, so you should know if someone says that find the maximum from this collection, just write it down. Okay, then only people will have confidence on you. Otherwise, you are like rejected. It's as simple as that. So these are the problems at line number 7: two sum, count words, factorial, recursion, palindrome, rotate. These are also like non-negotiable. So if someone tells you like find out the two sum, or so two sum is basically just you have a list of numbers, and there is a sum given. So any two combination will equate to that particular sum. So you need to find out the index of those two numbers inside the list. Okay, so you will get this on any of the websites, or possibly I will only make a video on all these problems, and then we can refer this. Uh, Singleton patterns. So this was a sort of generally I've worked on singleton like not on a regular basis, but I think you should be familiar with singleton patterns. This comes handy when this basically establishes the faith for an interviewer on you, because they will know that okay, you know something, like you know what's going on, right, with respect to the different patterns. In the company, not so much. Like when you actually start working, you might not require that so much on an everyday basis, but has a 5 years experience, you should be familiar with this. Microservice design patterns, microservice communication. Again, I'm again stressing on this because this is so much important, right? So REST template, Fin client, you should know this. Like this, without this, how can you work on this microservice itself, right? So yeah. So Fin client, this is important. Project architecture. Know the architecture of the project which you are working on in a current company. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to understand that architecture if your project is too big or distributed across several microservices. But get the help of seniors or people who have been working on it like from long time, more than a year or so. Try to get the knowledge of the complete project itself, right? Even it doesn't matter if you're just working on a part of that particular project. You should be familiar with where things are coming from and where things are getting published and how things are working actually, right? You can ask questions in your spare time when you have less work. You can just reach out to your other team members and try to know this information. SQL, not so important, right? Because it might be possible that you might be working on SQL queries or Hibernate queries or which is like Hibernate query language, any or JPA, for example. But couple of things which are non-negotiable is like so few of the questions. So, for example, I've written second highest salary. So just try to know like how this salary is actually getting derived using a simple query. Okay. So yeah, this is not all. I would say these are the non-negotiable topics. Okay, this is not even I would say not even basic or the important ones. These are non-negotiable. I mean, if I am taking the interview and if the candidate is like more than around 4, 5, 6 years of experience, if they are not knowing any of this, I'll sort of reconsider, like not reconsider them for the further processing. Okay. Until and unless at least 80% you should know out of this, at least try to know at least 80%. Then only you're moving ahead. Okay, so possibly I'll be making videos on all these topics one by one, moving ahead, starting with like possibly I'll take any of the topics and yeah, see you in the next